All right. Hello. Welcome to Digital Marketing Masterclass. Welcome back. We have a killer show today. Today, we are talking about client delight and how to close that flywheel. To my dismay, my co-partner and co-host, Mr. Todd Smith, is here, and he's with us. Todd, welcome to the show.
Hello, sir.
Awesome. So if you haven't been a fan of the show, this is a time where we talk marketing, we talk shop, and we bust on each other for about 40 to 60 minutes.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
Yeah.
Especially this next guy.
I know, exactly. Because if you know who we got in the green room, we've known him for about 15 minutes, and we're already in a place where we're busting on each other. We're best friends. So here's the deal. 21 years, I've been doing marketing for 21 years, and the biggest obsession that people have, I swear to God, is always just lead generation. It's almost like every other part of sales and marketing and business just all sort of falls through the, just falls out the
roof. Cracks.
Yeah, falls off the roof, basically falls by the wayside. And that's all they want is just more and more leads. And, they don't ask questions about qualification. They don't ask a number of questions about a number of different things. It's always just more leads, more opportunities. And you know what? One of the things that we try to do is we try to work as really hard as possible to say, you know what? Lead generation is part of it. But you know what? If you're not able to nurture and you're not able to convert and you're not able to generate referrals, you know what? Like it's like you're kind of like building a table with three legs. Like it might hold some weight, but it's not sturdy enough to scale and to really grow your business. So what I wanted to do is really talk later on at the part 2 of the show is the goal is to go from funnel to flywheel. All right. And we're going to talk about that quite a bit. But when I was talking to Todd earlier about the show, we were identifying 3 problems. So Todd, take it away.
Yeah. So what we've noticed in our own experience, and this is probably common for a lot of businesses, is when you go to ask for the referral, you probably haven't earned the right for that referral. And then when you do go and ask for it, it's either ineffective or you're doing more harm than good. Maybe you're uncovering some pain that the client has that you haven't figured out, and all of a sudden now you're down a bad path. Second is you just think that they're going to happen organically. So the myth that we've heard is that competency creates conversation. But that's not always true. See, competency is something that people expect. They pay good money for that competency, but you can't always expect that people are just going to talk about it. So, and what our guest is really going to help us with is what makes people talk is an exceptional experience. And it's not just exceptional, it has to be completely unique, completely unlike the competition. And the third part, and this is probably the hardest for people, and we're going to get into this at the end of the show, is there's no formal referral strategy. So you might have great intentions, but your intentions are only going to get you so far. So unless you go through the process of creating that strategy, defining the strategy, figuring out who the stakeholders are, and then executing that strategy, you're just going to rely on your own competency, and that's going to get you not very far. So what we want to do is we're going to bring in this expert on this topic, Mr. Joey Coleman. Chris, would you like to introduce Mr. Coleman?
It's my pleasure. Let me introduce Mr. Joey Coleman. Joey helps companies keep their customers. He's an award-winning speaker. He works with organizations around the world, ranging from startups to major brands such as Volkswagen Australia, Zappos, and Whirlpool. His first 100 days methodology fuels the remarkable experiences his clients deliver and dramatically improves their profits. He's the author of Wall Street Journal's #2 best-selling book, Never Lose a Customer Again. And when not speaking to audiences around the globe, Joey enjoys playing board games, building Lego sets, and reading bedtime stories with his amazing wife and 2 young sons. Internet, please welcome Mr. Joey Coleman. Joey, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, guys. It's a pleasure to be here. Appreciate the kind words, and I'm excited for our conversation today. And thanks to everybody who's joining in and listening. Hopefully, we'll have a fun one for you.
Yeah, this is great. We got a pretty packed show. I'm going to reintroduce some of the things we were mentioning before. What you should probably know is that, you know what? What I want to do is I want to keep this simple. All right. I want to reintroduce the show and talk about 3 key points. The first one is how to establish client delight. The second one is when to ask when it's okay to get a referral from clients, and particularly earning the right to be heard, and then ultimately how to turn your funnel into a flywheel. So Joey, you know what? I wanted to talk to you a little bit about our story before we dive in. So here's the deal. We do this thing that was really cool. It was a risk, but it sort of worked. We found out that our cost per acquisition to get a new client, even now, is about $11,000. So it's pretty expensive for us to get a new client. And so what we did is we decided long ago to actually do a little bit less sales and marketing, which is funny because we're a sales and marketing company. And what we did is we took a large portion of that cost per acquisition and we dumped it back into the client's campaigns so they get extra stuff. Because we believed that if we did more for the client, we did the right things for the client, that they would tell others. Now that wasn't always so, and we're going to break that down because you know what? You know, like that common expression, like if you build it, they will come. If you do great work, that doesn't always mean you're going to get referrals. And I want to break that down. You know what I mean? So that's one of the things that we felt like we did really, really well. But when we do lose that occasional client, we always know when we lost them. And it's always in that first 100 days. So let's break it down. What is that phenomenon that you've experienced that you write about?
Well, I think that phenomenon, Chris, is the human condition. I mean, I'm an Iowa guy, so I resonate with the if you build it, they will come theory, right? And that's beautiful for Hollywood. And it created a glorious baseball movie, but it's not a way to run a business, right? You've got to do more than just slap some hopes and prayers together and think, oh, this is going to all work out in the end. The more systematic you can be, the more structured you can be while still creating space for personalization, for customization, for the one-offs. That is what building a successful business looks like. And I love that you decided early on to kind of look at your cost of acquisition and say, instead of throwing this $11,000 at the front, what happens if we spread some of that money out across the relationship? And it's a brilliant move because the typical business has a tendency to put all of their eggs and all of their efforts into courting. Right? I liken this stuff to dating. Everybody makes a great effort to put their best foot forward in dating. We're going to the nice restaurants. We're going to the show. Front row concert seats. This is exciting. And then we get married and it's like, are we staying in tonight? Frozen pizza? What do you think? Netflix and chill? And it's like, wait a second. Where is all the intrigue, all the excitement, all the surprise, all the delight that existed in the dating relationship?
That's not exactly true, though.
Right?
Yeah,
you know?
I took my wife to the Monster Truck Show on Tuesday. She loved it.
There you go. There you go. So clearly you found the one person in the world that's excited about that. That's awesome. Good for you, Chris. That's brilliant.
Yeah. Two hot dogs.
Exactly. But here's the thing. I think we can, number one, give ourselves a little bit of grace and a little permission for being over-inclined on the lead generation and the chase side of it, right? There's a biological reason for that. There's a structural reason in most organizations why we over-index on that stuff. But if you're trying to build something sustainable, if you're trying to build something long-term, it's not enough just to chase the growth monster. Oh, we'll just add more. We'll throw more people at it. We'll throw more dollars at it. We'll throw more ad campaigns at it. That's not a sustainable solution. The better solution, and I would posit the reason most people got into business is because they actually want to deliver value. They actually want to create impact. They actually want to make a change. And that takes some time. So let's build that into the structure of our operations.
So when you were sort of building out this process, what was intriguing to me is when we bring on a client, we have an onboarding process. Our onboarding process, like our retainers are typically 15 months, and then our onboarding is typically 3 months. There's a lot of connecting, there's a lot of putting together, there's a lot of analytics, we've got systems we gotta have talking to each other. So like onboarding for us is roughly 90 to 100 days. So what I wanted to ask you is like, when you looked at those first 100 days, like how did you land at that? Is that like a function of the courting process? Like you got 100 days to make like a first impression, or like where did that come from?
Well, it was really based in research, Todd. You know, I'm a recovering attorney, and so I'm a big fan of evidence. Give me the evidence that proves the point I'm trying to make. And it all started with a banking study that I read. Now, that probably gives you more insight into my social life than anything else. You know, I'm home one night reading a banking study. But the banking study said that 32% of new bank customers, people who open a checking account become new customers, 32% will close that account before the 1-year anniversary. And then which I thought was staggering. I'm like, bankers are losing 32%. These are people who pay attention to the bottom line. These are people who their entire model is built on you continuing to pay the monthly maintenance fees for your account, right? And they're losing 32%. This is bad. But then there was a little comma in the sentence, and it said, and half of those leave in the first 100 days. And I thought, whoa, wait a second. 16% of customers are running out the back door as quickly as you bring them in the front door. This is fascinating. And it led me on a research adventure. I looked at businesses around the world, small, medium, and large, online and offline, international, domestic, product sales, you name it. And what we found is that somewhere between 20 and 70% of new customers leave before the 100-day anniversary.
Wait.
This number.
Say that again. I'm sorry. What was that?
20 to 70% of new customers leave before the 100-day anniversary. Software as a service, it's 20%. Cell phones, 21%. Auto mechanics, 68%. Restaurants, 40 to 70%, depending on the type of cuisine you serve. So these numbers are absolutely staggering. And what I realized is no one is talking about this. Everybody wants to talk about, you know, your ad campaign and your conversion rates and how's your funnel working. No one wants to talk about the fact that people are running out the back door as quickly as you bring them in the front. And when I realized that this was a problem with an incredible magnitude and scale across all industries and businesses of all sizes, I got curious. And I said, how do we stop this? How do we stop the bleeding? How do we stop the hemorrhaging? And I spent over a decade running my agency as a laboratory, putting in ideas, methodologies, techniques, structures, and systems. And what we found is we could very quickly move the dial by focusing on the first 100 days.
All right, so just pause for a second. So you were a defense attorney?
I was, yeah. I've got a crazy eclectic experience. I was a criminal defense lawyer. I worked in the intelligence community for Secret Service and CIA. I ran a division of a promotional products company. Don't worry, I won't.
Yeah, okay.
And then you're in the movie Rudy. Unpack.
Someone's clearly done their homework, Chris. Yes, I do not visually appear in the movie Rudy, other than in a crowd scene where they pan across the stadium during the final game that is the kind of culmination of the movie. But the group I sang with, the Notre Dame Glee Club, actually provided the bulk of the music for the soundtrack. So anytime you hear the fight song or the alma mater music in the background, that was the group I sang with in college.
That's so cool. All right, so and then you said your agency, you had a marketing agency?
Yeah, I ran a marketing and design and branding agency for 15 years. We built websites, we designed logos and identity kits. So I'm familiar with, you know, the work you all do for your clients and the work that a lot of your clients and listeners are looking and doing. And here's the thing, marketing, sales, it's important. Don't get me wrong. I am not the customer experience guy that will tell you that marketing and sales is bad. No, I know there's a lot of them in the world that do that. That's not me. All I'm saying is most businesses can delineate to the dollar how much they spend on marketing, how much they spend on sales, what their conversion rates are, et cetera. But when I ask them, how much do you spend on keeping your customers? They get real sheepish. It's like, well, I don't know. I mean, are we really going to spend that much money on thank you cards and on gifts and presents and, you know, client appreciation activities? I'm like, you think nothing of dropping $50,000 on a Facebook ad campaign where you're going to A/B test and see what sticks to the wall. But when I ask you to spend $5,000 on your top clients, suddenly everybody gets all stingy of, oh, well, I don't know, Joey, how's that going to work? That's going to work incredibly well, Bob. That's how it's going to work.
I was saying we got to send this to our business partner, because my business partner is the one who controls the purse strings. He's a super generous guy, but like when we ask him for money and stuff like that, like he's definitely like, well, what's the ROI on that? Because you know what I mean? It's like,
and here's the thing. I absolutely get it. I understand. And every business has at least one person in the business who is always asking, what's the ROI? And I'm fine with that conversation because the ROI is actually incredible. Some new research that came out by Fred Reichheld, the gentleman who came up with Net Promoter Score, they actually looked at the top companies over the last 2 decades on Net Promoter Score and what their stocks did in the stock market, and they were 3x the returns of the S&P 500 over the last 20 years, the companies that were top. So by the way, ROI, I'll happily put my customer experience ROI against anybody else's marketing and sales ROI. I just ask that we apply the same metric of evaluation to every aspect of the business. So if we're going to talk about ROI on that, do we get to talk about ROI on the phone system and the software and the ad campaigns? And because if we do, great. Let's just not bring it up only when we're talking about taking care of our customers.
Yeah. So when you're talking on this level, like I'm hearing like sales, marketing, customer service. Like when you're talking about client retention, like which of those 3 are you feeling like that like message resonating with most, or does it depend on the client?
Well, that would be yes. All of them, right? Because here's the thing. Customer experience, if I got all your employees in the room, not necessarily you guys, but all the employees of everybody listening in the room, and I said, raise your hand if you're in customer experience. My gut instinct is in the typical business, the 2 or 3 people who either have customer experience or customer service in their title or work in that department would raise their hand. That tells me all I need to know. Every single person in your organization is part of the customer experience, from the person that sends the invoices to the person who answers the phone to the person that makes sure the packages get mailed out on time. All of those people contribute to the experience. And I think at the end of the day, if we're going to create sustainable, long-term, well-designed, growing businesses, we've got to get on the same page that everybody contributes to the experience. We've got to empower our employees to be part of that story, and we've got to give them the tools and resources necessary to create that personal and emotional connection with our clients that leads to long-term retention.
Right. So basically, you're talking about culture change.
100%. Yeah. And in some organizations, it's culture change. In some, it's culture enhancement. In some, it's culture definition. It just kind of depends on where you are and what the philosophy is within your organization today.
Yep. And then do you find that like you need to, like that needs to come from the top down, or is that something that you can push up?
I think it needs to come from both. I think there needs to be executive sponsorship. The leaders need to believe it, but the frontline employees need to be empowered to have a voice in it, because let's be candid, in most conversations, the frontline employees have a better read on the pulse of the customer than the executive team. That's not because the executive team is bad. It's because the executive team doesn't spend all day, every day in front of customers. They're working on other things. So I think the businesses that I see that do the best, both in terms of their employee morale, their overall profitability, their overall, kind of long-term sustainability and success as an organization, are the ones that realize that the responsibility for customer experience, both as a function and a philosophy, exists in every human being involved in your organization.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So one of the things that we'd like you to go through, and you don't have to take a long time, Flamingo, on this, but we want to have you go through your 8 A's. So the first one is assess. So like, why is that so important? Just because it's funny you say that, because our unique process starts with a gap assessment, which is really kind of interesting. But what does that mean to you? And like what's the whole point of that assessing portion?
Absolutely. So for a little context, I believe that the customer journey is broken into 8 distinct phases. They all start with the letter A in my world, with the idea being that if you get them all right, it's like getting straight A's from your customers. They're giving you high marks and a good report card, okay? I know, some of us have had more experience with getting A's on the report card than others. That's totally cool. Todd, we can still be part of the conversation. But the assess phase, just playing with you,
I got you.
First volley fired. Feel it. I love it.
Oh, dude.
All right. So the assess phase is when a prospect is considering whether or not they want to work with you. They're looking at your marketing materials. They're checking out your website. They're having conversations with other customers. In common parlance, we call this in marketing and sales. In most businesses, it's the bulk of the focus, the time, and the investment. In my version of the world, it's step 1 of an 8-step part.
Okay. And is this pre-sale or after the sale's been made?
Pre-sale. This is all pre-sale.
Okay.
This is from the first time they hear about you up
Okay.
until the point where they say, I'm ready to go from being a prospect to being a customer.
Okay. I love it.
That's the action that distinguishes that we've moved to the second phase.
Okay. And second base looks like what?
The second phase, yes. The second phase in my world, that's all good. Whatever you want to call it, Todd.
I cannot wait to see how you answer this question.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say this is a perfect foreshadowing of why it's too early in the relationship to ask for referrals. No, the second phase is the admit phase, right? This is day one of the first 100 days. This is when the prospect admits that they have a problem or a need that they believe you can help them with. They sign on the dotted line. They hand over their hard-earned cash. They officially become a customer. That's in the admit phase.
Gotcha. Next phase would be affirm?
Correct. Phase 3, the affirm phase. This happens immediately after the admit phase. The affirm phase, in common parlance, is buyer's remorse.
Is this buyer's remorse? Yeah. Okay,
you guessed it, brother. This
Yep.
is buyer's remorse.
Yeah.
This is when our new customer begins to doubt the decision they just
Did
made.
I just drop 6 figures on this? What am I doing?
Totally. Well, here's the fascinating thing about the research, Todd. It's not just the 6-figure investments.
Yeah.
Research has shown that people have buyer's remorse for buying a sub $1 pack of gum at the checkout counter, right?
Yes.
So the reality is science has shown us that buyer's remorse exists with every purchase. The higher the dollar value, the greater the buyer's remorse, which is why we often hear about it in context of automobiles and homes.
Houses.
Why? Because those are the biggest
Big
investments you
purchase.
make in your life, right?
School.
So what we need to do, school. What we need to do in the affirm stage is reaffirm the decision they just made. We need to acknowledge the doubt and fear and uncertainty they have and reaffirm you did a good job assessing, you did a good job acknowledging that you had an issue in signing with us. We're going to take great care of you.
Gotcha. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. Phase 4. Activate?
Phase 4, yes, the activate phase. This is the first real moment of truth. This could be a kickoff meeting. This could be if you sell a product when they receive it and they take it out of the box and start to use it for the first time. In the activate phase, we want to energize the relationship. We want to let the customer know that doing business with us is going to be unlike any business experience they've ever had. Now, let's talk specifically to some of the CMOs and the agency folks who are listening, right? At the end of the day, most kickoff meetings feel exactly the same.
Yeah.
Let's just be honest. They do. Hey, let's roll out some snacks. We got some sugar for you. Gather around the boardroom table. Let's go around and make sure everybody introduces themselves, gives a 4 or 5 minute bio on why they're in the room, and then we'll actually provide some value. Really? I've been in that meeting 10,000 times. How could we reframe that kickoff meeting to have somebody leave and go, I have never been in a meeting like that before. I've never been part of a conversation like that before. I've never had that much fun before. Yes, it is okay to bring the F word into the workplace. It's fun. Go ahead and have some. And when we do that, when we activate the relationship, it brings a level of energy that necessarily creates momentum and excitement about the work together that is to come.
Okay, cool. Phase 5, acclimate.
Phase 5, acclimate phase. While most businesses are actually pretty good in the activate stage, phase 4, phase 5 is a general rule is where the wheels start to fall off. Okay? The acclimate phase is what you're doing to help the customer get familiar with your way of doing business. You've delivered on your product or service hundreds of times, thousands of times, tens of thousands of times. But to a brand new customer who's never done business with you, they have no idea what's coming next. You need to hold their hand. You need to help them get used to your operation. Now, I get it. Some of you listening are probably going, but Joey, we gave him a proposal. We detailed all the steps of our work together. Or Joey, we gave him an instruction manual. Friends, you skip the instruction manual with products you buy all the time. You pull it out of the box and you start using it, and you sign contracts and agreements that you don't read all the time. Your customers are exactly the same way. What we need to do is hold their hand. Tell them what comes next. Tell them why we're doing this next. Let them know that we're still with them. And the kicker about holding the hand is most businesses, the team starts to get resentful that they're still holding the hand. They're like, why aren't they figuring this out? Why aren't they learning? Here's the kicker. You got to hold the hand until the customer is ready to let go. Not when you're ready to let go. You want to hold it till they're ready to let go.
Okay. Was that 5 or 6? I lost track.
That was number 5, the acclimate phase,
good.
which brings us to
All right,
phase
good.
6. Now that one can last a long time, which brings
that
us to
felt long,
phase 6.
Flamingo.
There you go. That brings us to the accomplish phase. All right.
Yep.
I'm going to speed through these last three just for you, Todd. Okay. Phase 6, the accomplish phase. The customer achieves the goal they had when they originally decided to do business with you. You better celebrate with them and track what that goal is, because they're going to forget and you're going to forget. And if they don't believe they accomplished the goal, they're never making a referral and they're not coming back for more. Then you go to phase 7, the adopt phase. The customer becomes loyal to you and only you. They're committed. They're not going to go to the competition. They are 100% bought in. And if, and only if, you've gotten them through all of those phases, you come to phase 8, the advocate phase, where the customer becomes a raving fan, singing your praises, referring you new business. If you do it right, you can get there. The problem is, and this goes back to what you kind of said, Chris, is the opening of, the issue with referrals. Most people want to jump from phase 1 or 2 all the way to phase 8. Without taking the time. They get anxious. They're like, I don't want to spend any more time in this. No, that's how you get referrals, is you walk someone through all of the phases, and then the referrals come and they keep coming.
And then the last one, this was in the appendix of your book, was number 9, assassinate.
Yeah, assassinate. Exactly. Yeah.
When all else fails.
When all else fails. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Get them through all of them. Yeah. So here's the thing. I recognize there's a lot of pieces to this puzzle, right? And it's a complex process. But once you get it set up and running, it feeds itself. It becomes real easy. And most businesses, when they start, have something like this. They really take care of a client. They hold the hand. Why? Because you only have one client or 2 or 3. When you're starting, this is super easy. When you've experienced success and when you grow and you add more people to the team, that's where it gets messy.
Yeah. Yep. You know what I also find is that our company, the greatest thing we've ever done is we've developed SOPs, or standard operating procedures. The worst thing we ever did was developing standing operating procedures. Do you know what I mean? Like, it
totally.
takes so much of the genuine relationship building out of the mix. You know what I mean? Like, even let's pretend like your 8 pieces were built into my standard operating procedure. Like, I'm pretty sure that you can just feel so manufactured. I'm like, I'd like to activate you now.
Right.
You know what
right.
I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, welcome to the acclimate phase. This is where I'll be holding your hand. Yeah, no, this does not work well. So I think at the end of the day, we need the structures in our business to operate and to grow and scale. But at no point should automation or systemization be permission to not create personal and emotional connection. If it starts to slip into that, we need to stop focusing on the SOPs and start focusing on the people and on the relationships and the humanity. That's actually where all the magic lies.
And I think that's in your book too, because then you're talking about, all right, now that I've got these 8 or 9 steps, whatever you want to call it, but like, what are the ways you communicate? So if you're constantly fabricating like an email, like moving them through, there's phone, there's actually being in front of somebody, which is just foreign these days. You even talk about like gifts, right? Like different things to sort of like energize the process and make it not feel so manufactured.
Absolutely.
What kind of success stories have you seen, like with like really people sort of breaking the mold of communication?
Oh, dozens. I mean, at the end of the day, let me ask this question for everybody who's listening, and go ahead and raise your hand, because we can't see you, but we'll hear the sound of you raising your hand. Raise your hand if you wish you were getting more emails. Okay, that deafening silence you heard is that no one on the planet is hoping to have more emails. And yet this is the number one tool most businesses use to communicate with their customers. Take it out of the email inbox. I'm not anti-email. I'm anti-communicating in one channel only and presuming that our preferred channel, or the channel that we find easiest to operate in, is the one that our clients want to do. Pick up the phone. You've got this device in your pocket or in your purse or on your desk that has a button on it that when you press it, and with a series of other buttons, you can actually talk to someone. It's a novel, brand new technology, kids. Check it out. It's called the phone, right? Videos.
Real quick about the phone.
Go ahead.
What's really funny about the phone is, like, whenever my phone rings anymore, it's because it's a problem. Like, I can't tell you the last phone call I got that somebody said, like, they called me just to say hi. The phone call rings when it's the school, when it's my wife, she's at the auto mechanic. Like it's a problem when the phone rings, you know?
Absolutely.
So it's funny because we got to turn that around though.
Absolutely. And what would it be like to be that call?
Yeah, exactly. Like, what if that phone call isn't a problem? It's actually your vendor calling with something super exciting about the process that they're in.
Exactly. Or your friend who you happen to do business with calling to let you know they were thinking of you. Or they saw something. Now, here's the problem. Lots of times the phone has turned into the same type. The reason we defaulted to email is because the phone was becoming an interruption tool.
Yeah,
well, let's just call and see how you're doing. Yeah, no, don't do that. Call with value. Call with intention. Call with meaningfulness, right?
I like that.
You can use videos. You can use text the same way. One of my favorite techniques, you asked about some success stories, Todd. One of my favorite techniques is to shoot a video of yourself, a little selfie video, when you think of a customer. So, hey, I'm sitting here, on the beach, I'm on vacation, I'm reading a book, and when I read this passage, it made me think of you. Here's the passage, blah, 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 blah. By the way, I just wanted to let you know, I'm excited to see you when I get back and talk more about this, because I think what I just read might have some impact and value in your business. Text, send.
Todd does that himself. Like, I think it was probably even to me, he was like, I'm reading Twilight, and I'm totally thinking about you, and got really weird though. So
it might have been the scene where he didn't have a shirt on. That's totally fine, Chris. That's how you and Todd roll. I get it. That's fine. Whatever your relationship is, I embrace that. That's great.
Yeah.
But here's the thing.
Once this dye kicks in, you're gonna look like him.
When is the last time you got a video where somebody wasn't trying to sell you something?
Yeah, man.
When is the last time you got a video that was personally made for you as opposed to a stock video that got sent to 50 other people as a marketing tool or a technique? That's why services like BombBomb work so incredibly well. You can make a personalized video and send it to someone, and they're like, oh my gosh, here's a video. Now, if you're only ever sending videos, that's also a problem. To the point you made earlier, Todd, I believe in kind of mixing it up. Throw in presents. When's the last time you got a present that didn't have some company's logo on it? Oh, wow. Shoot, Joey, you're right. By the way, pro tip, fans, if it has your logo on it, it's not a gift or a present.
Ouch.
It's a marketing tool. I'm not against promotional products. I'm not against tchotchkes and giveaways, right? I'm not anti that. I'm just anti you thinking that that's a present.
Yeah.
It's not.
Wow.
I dig it.
Wow. Yeah. Very cool. Very cool. I think something that's really interesting is that my roommate, right before I got married, my roommate was the assistant golf pro at Marion Golf Club.
He doesn't still live with you, does he?
My wife loves him. Gives the best back rubs you never met. Now, so this is how the guy operated, and this is what you have to do to work in the most prestigious golf course in the world. I mean, Marion's obviously one of the best ever. It's where they have the Masters quite often, stuff like that. So he would work a 12-hour day, and he would come home, and he would iron his clothes so they were spot on. So the next day, he just looked like $1,000. But then what he would do is he would handwrite letters, and he would have like clippings from magazines and stuff. And he had all of the people categorized and what their hobbies were and stuff like that. So like in your intro, I know you're into Star Wars and Harry Potter. You know what I mean? Like if randomly you started getting a text from me about like, I don't know if you saw this or not, but they're going to do a new Star Wars series on Disney Plus. Wanted to be the first one to tell you. I know it sounds weird, but that goes just as far as anything work related.
Chris, 100%. It doesn't sound weird. It sounds human. We've made it weird with this faux belief that business and personal should be separated. If there's anything the last 2 years has taught us, as most people have been forced to work from home, navigate our pandemic situation, live in a different environment, is that our employees, our coworkers, our colleagues, our clients have lives outside of 9 to 5. They have things that are important to them. They have things that matter to them. And the more you can connect on those, the better. If you want to talk to me about Star Wars, about Harry Potter, about Notre Dame football, about travel, about the coolest book you just read, any of these things, you're going to get my attention a lot faster than if your opening volley is, let's talk about a sales funnel. Let's talk about your ad campaign. You know, those things are important. I'm not denigrating those topics. What I am saying is they are neither personal nor emotional. See, I believe that every interaction with a client can be personal or emotional or both. And the best businesses are the ones that figure out how to make personal and emotional connections with their clients and repeatedly have conversations about those.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking to a guy once. I was at the Masters over at Marion once, and I was talking to this guy about that same thing. For the record, the Masters is never at Marion. It's at Augusta, but we'll get to that later.
Oh, my bad.
We'll work on that.
We can edit that out in post-production. It's totally fine. Totally fine, Chris. You're all good. You're a big golfer. Huge. Totally into it. I got it. Huge golfer.
My roommate,
Loves it.
he was a golfer. Yes.
My roommate.
I went to Stanford with Bill Gates.
It's an adventure.
Chris, did you want to pivot this discussion?
Yeah, let's pivot. I'm looking to see how to hang up on you. Let's see. Okay.
Bottom left.
Bottom left, baby. And there goes Todd. Yep. All right, so I'm going to need your help on that. Where we're going next is the idea of taking what we just learned there, taking it through the 8 A's, but then now making a pivot to referrals. You know what I mean? Like what we were saying early on is, hey, you know what? Don't rush the process, you know, like earn the right to be heard when you're going to ask for a referral. But what I wanted to do, because some of the things I really like to do in a podcast is to basically divorce the idea or the concept of just talking about theory and start to talk a little bit about actual tactics. And so what I wanted to do is kind of walk through some of the tactics that we do. And then what I'd like you to do, Joey or Todd, is just kind of chime in and tell me, you know, where we're right, where we're wrong, where we could grow. All right?
Sounds good.
Yeah. So here's some of the tactics that we use and that we implement for clients, and we recommend that you talk to your agency about doing it, or you know, your CMO. So the first thing that we believe in is that we don't leave anything to chance. What I mean by that is that you got to get it on paper. Even though every strategy you're doing to generate leads and to nurture leads and stuff like that always seems formalized. But then when it gets to the referral stage, all of a sudden it's like it's just this ad hoc nightmare. Do you run into that quite a bit?
Only all the time. Only all the time. And here's what happens is most people are anxious to ask for a referral. So it comes so one of two things happen. Either they never ask, or when they ask in such an awkward way that no one likes the conversation, including the person who's asking for the referral. It looks something like this. Well, hey, kind of, if you happen to have some spare time and you weren't doing anything else, is there anyone in the whole world of everyone you've ever met that you think might be a good fit for our offering of SEO management? We have a special program running right now. It's a $59 per month subscription. That's kind of the entry one. And then there's a bigger one that they can sign up to from there as part of our funnel. Do you know anybody that you might be able to maybe share their email with me so that I could potentially reach out to them 7 times a day for the next 2 weeks and burn any relationship you have with them so that they might be interested in working with me?
Yeah.
Okay. Nobody wants to make that referral. Nobody wants to have that conversation. Mm-hmm. Instead, what happens if we change the script? Instead, what happens if we acknowledge that we've done a great job? The client is like, oh my gosh, the way you did this for us, this was huge. You have no idea what a problem this was. You saved our bacon on this. This is incredible. We're feeling great. Oh, Chris, I'm so glad that was your experience. We love doing it for you. In fact, we love doing that for all kinds of clients. We've done that in the golfing industry. We've done that over in healthcare. We've done that in, manufacturing. Out of curiosity, you're a smart guy. You run in a lot of networks of CMOs. Who do you know? Who have you kind of had a conversation with in the last year or so that's a CMO that is struggling with the same problem that you're struggling with? Have you had this conversation around the fire or on the Zoom call or with anybody where they've said it? Oh, now that you mentioned it, Joey, I did have a conversation with Sally over at this so-and-so organization a few weeks ago about the same thing. Well, here's what I was wondering. Do you think Sally would be open to jumping on a call with you and I? And we would work together to brainstorm some potential things that she might want to do that could get her some quick wins that might help her start to navigate through this problem. Would you be willing to set aside like a 20-minute call, Zoom call, where you invite both of us to the call? You tell Sally like, hey, come to this call. I want to help you with this problem. And I'm going to invite my friend Joey to see if he comes and has any ideas as well. Would you be open to that? Yeah, I would. Awesome. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's set that up. Here's when I'm available, and let's go ahead and make that happen.
Yeah.
You haven't asked for the business. You've said, who do you know that I can provide value to and help you out with? It changes the conversation and it narrows the field.
Yeah. Awesome. You gave me tons of ideas here. Hey, Todd, while I'm writing that down, because I want to unpack that even a little bit farther, talk about your story about how you plant the request for the referral early on, like in the sales process.
Yeah. So of the... Oh, Todd, you go ahead. You tell this story. I've got another one too. You tell yours and then I'll tell mine.
Yours might be better, so I'll let you go first.
All right. So I doubt it's better, but I'll go first and let you finish up with the icing. All right. So there's a company in Canada called Total Debt Freedom. They help people who've gotten into debt get out of debt. Now, their business is set up where basically the sales process happens over the phone. And once you sign up for their program, you get handed off from the salesperson to the actual account manager who's going to manage your debt loan forgiveness programs and get you all set up on the financials. In a lot of businesses, there's a handoff. And in most businesses, that baton is regularly getting dropped. And if you're a fan of the Olympics, you know a drop baton doesn't mean you bend over and pick it up. A drop baton means you're disqualified. You don't get to finish the race. Game over. So what they do is they want to make sure that handoff is as smooth as possible. And they want to pre-frame this new customer about what the end result is going to be. So they send them a quick video. It's a less than 2-minute long video where they introduce the account manager. They restate some of the things the person wants help with. So it lets the new customer know that the salesperson and the account manager had a conversation together. And then they say, and by the way, when we're done with this project, you're going to come here. And you realize when he says here that this entire video, they've been standing in front of a wall covered with signatures. And they say, we're going to have you come here. This is our raving fan wall. And our goal is to create such a great experience for you that you're going to come here and sign the raving fan wall that we got you out of debt. And we did it faster and easier than we even thought was going to be possible. Wow. Now, here's the crazy thing. This company's based in Canada. They have had customers drive from the other side of Canada, thousands of miles, to sign the raving fan wall. That's how you pre-frame a customer for the referral that's going to come. Because, by the way, when they get there and they sign the wall, it's real easy to ask, hey, who in your hometown also struggles with debt?
Yeah.
Who do you know that would also be able to help?
It's an easy social post. Bam.
100%. Yeah. Oh, here we are with Todd. He drove from Vancouver to Toronto to sign our raving fan wall. Yeah. By the way, while I was here, we gave him some surprises. We know he's into Harry Potter, so we had chocolate frogs. We know he's into Star Wars, so we had some Cantina music playing in the background while we were doing this. We know he's into golf, so we took him shooting. Yeah, look at the Star Wars mug. I love it. See, here's the thing. There are a couple of topics that create either connection or polarity. People are looking for similarity or polarity. What I mean by that is I can throw out a topic like Notre Dame football.
Right.
Now, here's the interesting thing. Everyone who's listening, who's a fan of Notre Dame football, just fell a little more in love with Joey Coleman. Everybody who's not a fan of Notre Dame football just decided that they should hang up on the podcast. Don't do it yet. Here's the thing. The kicker is we've created some polarity. And most people who aren't fans of Notre Dame football want to continue the conversation to tell me why their team is better. Guess what? Mission accomplished for me. We're having a conversation. We're in connection. And I believe there are two types of people in the world. There are people that are fans of Notre Dame, and there are people who haven't been converted yet. It's okay. We're going to get to all of them, all right? The moral of the story here is these type of conversations, these type of opportunities are available in every single interaction you have with your customers.
Okay, so here's the big question. like the way that you position this, like it makes a ton of sense, right? So why don't people do it?
Oh, that's a great question, Todd. And there's a number of reasons. I'll go through a couple of them quickly and try to avoid laying down on a therapist's couch to talk about it, okay? Couple reasons. Number one, most businesses have hammered out of people the personal connection. We want you to follow an SOP. We want you to be standard. Here's the template. Send it on this day. So we have taken the humanity out of business. Number two, people are afraid that if they talk about this stuff, it somehow makes them vulnerable. The other person has something on them that might be able to be used against them later. Number three, they don't have a lot of model or context for how this has shown up in the business world. Yet, ironically enough, if you ask them to describe their best business relationships, and they say, oh, my friend Todd, he's amazing, and you say, cool, what do you know about Todd that you love so much about him? And then you're quiet and you listen. In under 2 minutes, they will tell you things that have nothing to do with Todd's work responsibilities and everything to do with about what Todd's hobbies are, or his interest, or he's a family man, or he likes to go here on vacation, or he went here to school, or he roots for this team, or whatever it may be. They immediately go to the things that are connection. So I think the reality is most people know how to do this. They just don't feel that they have permission. Now, you asked earlier, is this a top-down led thing or a bottom-up led thing? It's both, but here's where we want to over-index on the leadership. The leadership has to go first. If the leader is talking about their love of Star Wars, suddenly it's okay for everybody in the organization who loves Star Wars to talk about Star Wars. If the leader pokes fun at Star Trek, suddenly it's okay for everybody who's a Star Trek fan to take shots at the leader about Star Wars. And we create this space. And for the people who aren't into sci-fi at all, they can come to work wearing their Harry Potter robes. It's fine. There's room in every organization for everyone, but you've got to be willing to go first. Last thought on this. If you go first, it creates feelings of reciprocity. Yeah. Here's the thing, for those of you that are listening, not watching. When I started talking about Star Wars, Todd held up a mug that had the Star Wars logo on it. See, I went first. I volunteered that I was a Star Wars fan, and Todd couldn't help himself but to say, me too. I also am a fan as well. This is how humans work. When we go first and we throw enough topics out there, you've heard a lot about them from me. You've heard Notre Dame football. You've heard Star Wars. You've heard Harry Potter. You've heard travel. You've heard books. You've heard a variety of things. I guarantee one of those things has hooked. That's all we need to do. We need to throw enough personal things out there that we get one hook with a customer. And as soon as we get the hook, now we go in a little bit to deepen the conversation and we start really listening for the things that they're throwing out that we might be able to connect with.
I love it.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me plow through the next ones. I'm going to plow through a couple of them at a time, just because we're a little bit short of time, but I do want you to chime in, at the end to just make sure that I've kind of wrapped it up the way you would have thought. So after you sort of written it down on paper, all right, one of the things that we do, it's just a tactic, is we add it to a calendar, even better, an automation system. Now, we don't recommend that it drips out to the client in an automated form. We recommend that the automation system is kind of like a reminder system to make sure that you're engaging with that client and keeping it consistent. So like this really like odd story, but I it's just tactics that you have to do when you're a busy person is that, my parents are in their 70s, and if I don't call, I don't know how to describe it. If I don't call at least 2 to 3 times a month, I get this like text message that are like, did you die?
Did you die? Yeah, exactly.
Parents?
Yep.
You know what I mean? And so what I do is I literally just have a reminder system to pop up that says call mom and dad. Now that doesn't feel plastic, like I have to call them. It's just basically says, hey, you know what? You value this. This is a reminder to go after what you value. The problem is that in the referral world, people know it's a value. They write it down on paper, but they don't remind themselves. They don't refresh that wheel. And so what happens here is it's left a chance. When it's left a chance, what's easy to do is easy not to do. You know what I mean?
Chris, I think that's brilliant. 2 quick thoughts on that. Number one, I love the internal automation, not automating as a drip out to the client, automating as a drip to yourself to remind you to do this. One of the things I love to do is set aside a personal and emotional connection day every month where I block an entire day on the calendar. And my only goal for that day is to make as many personal and emotional connections as I can. I get on social media and I go through and I make comments on things. I see something on social media with somebody I know and I send them a text. I get out of that channel and I send them a text and say, hey, I saw on Facebook that you just got a new puppy. Looks amazing. Can't wait to meet him next time I see you. End of story. P.S. Send me a little video of it so I can show to my boys. They're crazy about puppies.
Yeah.
Those type of things, to your point, if we don't regularly build them into the schedule, will never happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? I think that sometimes you think that the target you're going after is inundated with emails, inundated with these things. If you hyper-personalize, they're never too tired of it. I promise. You know, I don't know. I've been doing podcasts and I've been able to develop genuine friendships. And it's because I know Jay Bear loves tequila. And I know that Mike Alton also loves Star Wars. And I know that, you know what I mean? And so the reason why I'm able to refresh that is because, you know what I mean? Like I'm trying to find everything other than talking shop.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, we're all willing to talk shop to some level. But it's what we do for the bulk of the business working hours. So if we can have a little respite, a little moment, a text message, an email, a video that is something that is not shop, that is personal and emotional, that is going to stand out. And if you doubt the validity of that statement, I ask you to think about the last personal and emotional connection conversation you had during business hours with a client, with a customer. When I just asked you that, something came to mind. The reason it came to mind is because it's so rare. It's so infrequent. And my gut instinct is it wasn't 5 minutes ago, that conversation that happened. It was days ago, weeks ago, maybe even months ago, but you still remember it.
Yeah. All right, next tactic. I write 3 email sequences about the ask. I vary what that's going to be about. And again, I send it to myself and not to them. Because here's the problem is that later on, when you do schedule time to talk to them, you're going to have to start out from scratch, and you're going to have to forget you're going to forget the context of what you said before. And so if you can spoon feed yourself, it's going to make that process a whole lot easier than always just trying to remember the origin of the story.
Absolutely. Another tactic I would suggest is teach everybody on your team to make notes in your CRM about referable moments. What I mean by that is they have an aside conversation with the client and says, oh man, I really, your ability to capture what our offer was in that copy you created for us was absolutely incredible. Now, you don't want to ask for a referral every time you get a compliment. That's a nightmare. But what you do want to do is track that so when it comes time to ask for a referral, you've got a library of things that they talk. Hey, remember when I remember you telling me when we wrote that copy for the email that you really felt we captured your voice. Do you remember that? Oh yeah, I remember that. You were incredible about that. Is there anyone that you know that is having problems with their agency capturing their voice? They're going back and forth in rounds of revisions because they just can't get it. Oh, now that you mention that, yeah, there are a couple of people that have said that as a problem. Would you be willing to introduce that to me? Or would you be willing to go on LinkedIn and share that story? By the way, I put together a little refresher of that story that I can email to you that you're welcome to just copy and paste, or you could edit and add in any way you want. Would you be willing to do that? Of course I'd be willing to do that. Awesome. Boom, send, comment made. Because referrals aren't just referrals to specific people. Sometimes a referral can be someone publicly stating how awesome you are.
Yeah.
That can spur the referrals because they'll get the private message that says, oh, Todd, I see you were singing Chris's praises. Can you make an introduction to that guy? It sounds like he might be able to help us out with our problem.
Yeah. And one other thing to my readers or listeners is that when I'm talking about referrals, sometimes it's referring and getting more business. Other times, and this happens quite a bit, is that 99% of the time that we sell, and Todd's really good at this, is saying, you know what? We've done the whole proposal. We've done the dance. We've done all that stuff. But talk to my clients about the experience that you've had with Faratech. Because sometimes that person isn't going to go into the Rolodex and hand you stuff, but they are going to be on call to take one for the team and explain their experience with you in a way that, like, I literally, this is how it goes almost every time. I send them to my clients, and my client texts me back and says, oh, you got that guy for sure.
Yeah.
You became an advocate. You're like your last
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
And that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the difference between a client and an advocate.
Yeah,
An
it makes
advocate is a verb. They're taking action. They are actively promoting you. I'd rather have advocates than referrers. A referrer is a transactional behavior. An advocate is a philosophical approach.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Now this one is a little bit used with caution, but I still believe in this. Be specific. And what I mean by that is that if I was to ask you, Joey, hey, what's your favorite movie? I mean, obviously we could say Star
Braveheart.
Wars,
Rudy.
right?
Rudy.
Yeah, Rudy. It's just the music. Just the music.
Just the music in Rudy, the action in Braveheart.
Exactly.
Sean Astin
Right?
bugs me.
Yeah. Oh, we got stories. We got stories. But what, like in the general sense, if I said, what's your favorite movie? You say Braveheart. We're probably around the same age, right? But a lot of times what you would
I
do is that,
guarantee you're younger. You look much younger anyway, Chris.
yeah, 44.
Guaranteed. Oh, nice. Yes, you are younger. I love it.
Yeah.
I'm 48. It's all good.
Okay.
1973?
If you,
You bet. Quick
Yeah, me
math.
too, but-
I like
Me
it.
too.
Good
Well,
math,
that's 'cause
Todd.
I'm the same age, actually. It wasn't.
exactly.
I love it.
Yep. What I really try to say is like the you weren't supposed to say Braveheart right out of the gate. Usually what happens if I say, what's your favorite movie? People are like, like that. But if I said, hey, what's your favorite action movie? If I said, what's your favorite comedy?
Right.
Rudy.
You know what I mean? I allow you to narrow it down and be specific, right?
Yeah.
If I ask you, hey, could you give me a referral? Is there someone you know? I know it sounds weird, but because it's so broad, sometimes you just don't know. But if I've taken some time to go through your LinkedIn and say, is there
Yeah.
someone you don't know? By the way, buyer personas that gravitate to what we say are
Yes.
Linda Schmidt, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. In other words, a lot of times like, oh, I know Linda. Yeah, no problem.
Love it.
Do you know what I
Love-
mean?
No, 100%. And I would say I appreciate your cautioning, like, oh, you might not always want it. I'm actually a big fan of this model. I think it's hugely valuable. And folks listening might have heard it earlier when I referenced, like, hey, remember that time you made us get the voice really right in our email? Who else do you know that's having? You specifically narrow, because when I ask you, who do you know that might find value in working with me? I've taken you to a part of your brain that considers every human you've ever met or interacted with. I don't want someone lost in the spinning. I want to say something like, we are trying to break into the healthcare field. We're looking for more clients in healthcare because we found out we worked with 3 of them last year. We did this, this, and this. We're looking for other people in healthcare that are dealing with these types of problems. Who do you know in healthcare that would benefit from having some of the type services that you've experienced with us? Oh, well, actually, my college roommate who we used to go golfing together is the CEO of this hospital over here. I don't know specifically if they'd have a need, but he's a good friend. Awesome. Here's the thing. Would you be willing to make an intro, or would you be willing even just to reach out to him and ask him this question? Hey, how is your work going with navigating messaging in this COVID era? I imagine it's a little tricky and wonky. If you were ever looking for some help with this, have I got the folks for you?
Yeah.
Now we're
Yeah.
having a completely different level of interaction.
Love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's good.
The next tactic that I try to use is know that your client is busy and do not make them think. And so what I mean by that is that I give, if I'm going to someone and I say, hey, Bob, can you give me a referral? Excuse the simplicity of that. But can you give me a referral? And if Bob says yes, I'm going to say, here's 2 options. One is you can just do it right off the cuff of an experience you've had with us. But 9 times out of the 10, they say, yeah, I'll give you a referral. What do you want me to say? And so what I do is, as I say, you can say whatever you want. These are the things that we believe were true in our relationship. If you disagree with them, you don't have to use any of them. But I thought that this would be there so that I could spoon feed you to make that referral in 3 clicks. Because
Absolutely.
if I make you write an essay, it's going to seem weird. And the
gonna feel
other
like
really
homework.
bad tactic here is that if they try to sell your service,
Yeah.
you don't want your referral to sell your service, because the person who receives it is going to be like, am I being sold here? Do you know what I mean?
Well, 100%. And number 1, they might react, am I being sold here? Number 2, the person who's making the referral might not be a good salesperson for anything, let alone your services, and they might sell someone into the wrong thing or some type of expectation that you're then going to have to deal with. No, I am a big fan of this model of make it as easy as possible for them to create the connection that you need or for them to do the action that you want them to do. Let me pull back the cover, if I could, very briefly on the book world and a little insight that the average book reader doesn't know. You know how in the back of the book there are blurbs from other authors that you like and other famous people?
Yeah.
Do you know how the majority of those are created? The author writes the blurb, sends it to the person and says, would you be okay if I attached your name to this? The person responds, yes, and there's the blurb. Now, when I was writing my book, to be honest, there were a couple of people who I knew were incredibly busy. So what I did is I wrote up 20 potential blurbs.
Wow.
And I sent that to these people and I said, here's the deal. I love you dearly. You were kind enough to say you'd be happy to blurb my book. Here's an attachment with my entire book if you want to read it and blurb something specific. If you don't have the time, feel free to pick one of these. And I promise you, based on our relationship, what I've said in the blurb is actually true. It matches what's in the book. But then I would try to target the blurbs to things they already know. Things like, I've known Joey for years. And if there's one thing I know about Joey is if he's going to talk, he's going to give you strategy and tactics in the same conversation. This book is like Joey's talking put down on paper. That's a fair assessment because they know me. We have a relationship. They know that's the truth. And they can just hit yes. And now I've got a blurb on my book that says it's got strategy and tactics. I've achieved my goal. I've made it easy for them. I'm a big fan. Make it simple for people to help you.
Yeah.
Love it.
I love it. Yep. And then, when they're doing that, make sure that they don't add technobabble. They're not selling you. But my fourth and final tip is, and this is something that I sort of made up on the spot, but thank the client. But one of the tactics that we use is what I call a thank you ladder. This is from a book called Giftology. Have you ever heard of Giftology?
John Ruhlin's only been a friend for over a decade now. Yeah, big fan of Giftology and John's work.
Yeah.
I'm actually a case study in John's book, and he's a case study in my book. That's how much I know John and appreciate the work he does with Giftology.
Oh, my gosh. I'm trying to get him on the show.
Oh, let me know. Well, we can make that happen. Happy to intro you to John. He's a great human being. Yeah, 100%.
That's great. So what I did was I looked at Joey's LinkedIn profile, then I subtly said Giftology. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. See, that'd be a perfect example if that's actually what you had done. And here's why this technique is so beautiful. What happened? The second you said something that I could connect with, I wanted to share that I was friends with John. I wanted to go even further and tell you he's in my book, I'm in his, etc. So that's the beauty of creating personal and emotional connection with folks.
Awesome. Yeah. So this is something he wrote about. I took his concept, added my own language to it. I call it a thank you ladder. And the thank you ladder, the first thing you have to do is you have to understand who are your rainmakers? Who are the people that are giving you referrals? How often are they turning into leads or sales? And then on the first referral, you give them a thank you gift. On the second referral, you take it up a notch and you take it up a notch and you take it up a notch. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those situations where if you are my rainmaker, your gifts are going to feel like a rainmaker gift. Do you know what I mean?
I know 100% what you mean. Can I tell a quick story about John and sing his praises on this ladder model? So I have spoken about John in almost every speech I've given for the last decade. And the reason is his work is so solid, it's so clear, it's so fantastic. As a result, a lot of the people who hear me speak go on to hire John. Now, I don't get any kickbacks from that. I don't tell them, hey, go work with John. Tell them Joey's saying. I just talk about him. I sing his praises. That's enough for things to happen. Fast forward a couple years into this, and I'm doing it, and John's sending me gifts, and he's doing special things, and I'm getting Cutco knives, and I'm getting Cutco scissors, and I'm getting special little gifts and prizes and all these great things from him. And one day,
sneakers with knives.
Exactly. One day I get a text message from John that says, are you home right now? And I responded, I'm like, no, I'm on the road, but I'll be home on Friday. He said, great. When you get home on Friday, the answer is 007. And I responded back and I was like, what? And he goes, it'll make sense. I'm like, all right. So I get home on Friday. My wife's there, and I was like, oh, I was on this trip. How are you? She said, by the way, you got a package here, a FedEx box. It's a big FedEx box. I'm like, okay. I open it up, and in the box is a metal briefcase with a combination lock on it. And I'm like, okay, this is interesting. No note, no nothing, metal briefcase with a combination lock on it.
Yeah.
And so I call my two boys into the room. I'm like, boys, come here. Dial the combination to read 007 007. And the boys dial it up, and they click and they open it. And inside is $1,500 in cash in $1 bills. Okay. Now, I don't know if you've ever seen $1,500 in $1 bills. Todd, don't share that story. I know you have, but Chris, pretend that you haven't. Okay. Here's the thing. My kids are like, oh my gosh, this is $1 billion. This is so much money. And they're throwing the money in the air and make it rain and do, and we're having a blast. Here's the thing. It wasn't about the money. It was about the uniqueness, the experience, the surprise and delight. That happened years ago, like 5-6 years ago. And I'm still telling that story. Why? Because it stood out. The referral gift was such an unexpected surprise. And there wasn't even a note. It didn't say, oh, this is from John. It didn't say, hey, Joey, thanks so much for the bit. I knew who it was from. He didn't have to put his name on it. And I'm still telling the story. That's how you know your presence and your gifts are working.
That's awesome. Oh man, how am I going to top? We're not
I
going
don't
to top
think we
that.
can.
We're not going to top that.
Hey, I had
awesome.
one thought. I had one
go
thought
ahead.
before we close, Chris. Have you ever, now that we've had a chance to really learn the process and think about it, have you ever looked at, all right, never lose a customer again? Have you ever, thought about how this process could apply to, human resources? Never lose an employee again?
Todd, I got to ask, are you teasing me or are you reading my mind? Which is it? I'm being honest. I can't tell.
Honestly, it's something that came to my mind. Maybe
I
it's
love the
because
question.
we're born in the same year, but I don't know, something cosmic in the world.
Two weeks ago, I signed a contract with my publisher portfolio for my next book, which comes out in 2023.
And it's
called Never Lose an Employee Again. I'm not making this up. There's a lot, folks. This is live, Todd. We are simpatico. I love it. Wow. Here's the thing, and for anybody who's read Never Lose a Customer Again, I'll give you a preview. Same 8 phases, same 6 tools.
Different
turned
letters.
internally on your organization instead of externally, right? And I'm not just doing a find and replace where every time I said customer in the first book, I'm replacing it with
client.
employee and printing out the book. No, we're going to have dozens of case studies from all over the world. Absolutely. The reality is the next great what is the word I want to say?
Right.
The
awakening,
next
renaissance.
The next great renaissance awakening, the thing that is going to be the differentiator going forward, that is going to make customer experience possible, is employee experience. We are about to say, we're already seeing it. And if you haven't felt this in your own business, just wait. It is coming. The next decade is going to completely revolutionize the way employees interact with their employers. And if you don't figure this stuff out and figure it out in short order, your goose is cooked. You're done. You're going out of business. I don't care how many customers you have. I don't care what your budgets are. I don't care how strongly your funnel converts. If you don't have the humans who get empathy, who get connection, who will show up and be part of your mission and are committed to you and what you're doing, and you're committed to them and their personal growth and development, I can literally count the number of days you're going to be in the business on a calendar. It's going to be short. So absolutely super excited. I was teasing because I was like, how does he know? Are you hacking my email, dude? 100%. Never lose an employee again. You heard it here.
Yeah, I'm no joke. I'm almost tired of answering that question that I'm getting it that often is how much I'm getting it, Joey, is with COVID and the virtual experience, how are you keeping it human? I'm not trying to flex here, but I contributed to an article in Forbes 3 days ago that got published about how do you humanize? How do you keep your employees engaged? How do you show the love? It's like, as a leader, they're not even asking me about marketing anymore. It's literally, they're just saying it's getting crazy out there. What are you going to do to keep your most important people as the most important thing. You know what I mean?
100%. And here's the thing, Chris,
Yeah.
I respect and understand because I've been in a number of conversations with, frankly, big name CEOs who have said, Joey, I didn't sign on for this.
Yeah.
I didn't sign on to be a therapist. I didn't sign on to be a babysitter. And I'm like, you know what? You're right. You didn't. You should just resign now. Because if you can't see that the landscape has completely changed, and frankly, it's long overdue. The only reason we're in this position is because so many employers have treated their employees so poorly for decades that this tidal wave is happening. I'm sorry, if you're not going to be part of the solution, you're clearly part of the problem. You got to just step to the back and let someone else lead. This is huge. This is not just a response to COVID. This has been building over time. It's been exacerbated and accelerated by COVID. And even when COVID goes away, it's still going to be gaining momentum because the curtain has been pulled back. The employees realize that the way that things were operating, if they say this isn't working and enough of them say this isn't working, every business on the planet is in trouble.
Yeah. Yeah. And you know what? Adopting the exact opposite approach, not the exact opposite approach, but as the employer who thinks about culture as much as I think about sales, it's fun.
Oh, it's totally fun. Listen, we spend the majority of our day with our coworkers. Okay? Here's the fascinating thing. Your spouse, your significant other, your children, your parents, the people you spend time with after work hours, you chose all of them.
Yeah.
You opted into those relationships.
Yeah.
The relationships with your coworkers, with your employees, 9 times out of 10, you had no involvement. Why are we surprised that culture is so challenging? Why are we surprised? Because we're not actually connecting with the people we spend the bulk of our day with.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah. Yeah. Joey, we were joking around. Is this podcast going to be like 2 hours? I could go another hour. You're the bomb.
And
Thanks,
Joey,
guys. I appreciate it.
Joey, not for nothing, but you played like a champion today.
I appreciate it. Tap the wall. For those of you that aren't football fans, big motto of Notre Dame, play like a champion today. I love it. I love it.
That's awesome. So, Joey, how... To my listeners, if you haven't heard of Joey Coleman, first crawl on out from under the rock you've been living on, but then on the other hand, how would they get a hold of you?
So best way to get in contact with me is through my website, joeycoleman.com. That's Joey, like a 5-year-old, or a baby kangaroo. Joey, not Mr. Coleman. It's just Joey. It's all good. Joey Coleman, Coleman, like the camping equipment, but no relation. Joeycoleman.com. The book is called Never Lose a Customer Again. The next book's called Never Lose an Employee Again. You can get the first one in the hardcover book. We've got the ebook. We've got an audiobook. So if you've enjoyed listening to me pontificate and talk about these stories, I'll read the book to you in the audiobook fashion. And I would just say it's been a delight connecting with both of you. I really appreciate the questions and the opportunity. And a special thanks to everybody who listened. Look, these guys bring the thunder. Todd and Chris, they deliver value. They get great guests on their show. I was honored by the invitation. I was thrilled to be here. Thanks for giving your time to listen. And I hope you've gotten at least 2 or 3 things that you can put in practice and not just have a podcast be something that you're consuming as content, but use it as an accelerant to actually create, to go and do things with what you've learned instead of just think about it.
Awesome. Wow. You know what? I don't even need to finish off with my normal jingle, but thank you so much. If you are new to the show, please subscribe. We're going to try to pump out some of the best possible content from the best possible thought leaders in our industry, in America, in the world. So please visit again. Joey, you are a rock star. Thank you, and we will see you next time.